Okay, wonderful. I think we are all set to go. So hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. My name is Emily Lyons, and I am the chair of the Democrats Abroad Global Asian American and Pacific Islander Caucus. I really appreciate everyone taking the time to be here today and also those who are tuning in on Facebook. We are recording this and we will be sharing this on YouTube later as well. So in case anyone misses this or you know of anyone who wants to watch, we will be sharing this online. Also, please just make sure if you are not speaking to keep your microphones muted. But before we begin, I would like to hold a brief moment of silence to remember all the lives that we've lost in just the past few weeks due to senseless gun violence. This includes the shooting in Laguna Woods, California, at a Taiwanese church, the 10 individuals that were killed in Buffalo, New York, and the 21 children and teachers that were just killed this week in Uvalde, Texas. So if we could just have a brief moment of silence. Okay, thank you. Today's event is sponsored by Democrats Abroad AAPI Caucus. Our caucus is focused on reaching out to AAPI voters living abroad and others interested in AAPI issues and culture, as well as increasing engagement in civic, cultural and political life, and advocating for laws, policies, and programs that improve the lives of AAPI individuals. As we come to an end to AAPI Heritage Month, our event today is a transition to Pride Month, which begins in June, as we celebrate intersectionality within our communities. We are very honored to have Diego Miguel Sanchez, who is the Director of Advocacy, Policy, and Partnerships at PFLAG with us today. For those who don't know, PFLAG is the first and largest organization for LGBTQ plus people, their families, friends, and allies with over 250,000 members across the US. PFLAG is committed to creating a world where people are respected, valued, and affirmed, inclusive of their sexual identity, and gender expression. PFLAG's programs of advocacy, support, and education serve to address many of the issues that the AAPI Caucus is concerned with, such as discrimination, violence, and harm, and removing the root causes of violence and injustice, including systemic racism. After Diego's presentation today, there will be a discussion of how we can assist our communities with these key issues and make sure that our voices and votes are heard. Before we get started, I do want to remind everyone that the elections are coming up with primaries already having started, and in November, there are crucial midterms that are crucial to our communities. Please make sure that you vote in these important elections. You can go to votefromabroad.org to get more information on voting from abroad and to request your ballots. It only takes a few minutes. So now I would like to introduce our speaker. Diego Miguel Sanchez is Director of Advocacy, Policy, and Partnerships at PFLAG. He is a native of Augusta, Georgia, and longtime Massachusetts resident. Prior to his appointment with PFLAG, Diego was Senior Policy Advisor to Congressman Barney Frank until the representative's retirement in 2013. Diego made history with that appointment, being the first openly transgender person to work as a senior legislative staff member on Capitol Hill. He also testified before Congress in the historic transgender discrimination hearing in 2008, and that year was named as the first openly trans person ever appointed to the DNC Platform Committee. Diego also served as Director of Public Relations and External Affairs at the AIDS Action Committee of Massachusetts and AIDS Action Council, DC. Before moving into the nonprofit sector, Diego worked for 20 award-winning years in global public relations, marketing, and diversity management at world headquarters of Fortune 500 companies. Diego was among the 100 most powerful Latinos in corporate America, named by Hispanic Business Magazine, named an LGBT Latino hero by the mayor of Washington, D.C., in the 100 most powerful Latinos in Massachusetts by El Planeta, and in 2013 named the Out 100 and an inaugural Trans 100 sponsored by GLAAD. Diego is also a senior fellow of UMass Boston's Emerging Leaders Program in the College of Management. Please join me in welcoming Diego. Diego, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Emily. It's an honor to be with everyone here today. And, you know, it's such a critical and important time, and I'm very pleased that you're sharing this time with us, either live or in viewing later. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen. and I welcome everyone. Very honored to be with you today for us to talk about looking at diversity, inclusion, and actually honoring human dignity. And today, what we're going to do is discuss reproductive rights and justice very quickly, and then go right into learning about fighting anti-LGBTQ plus censorship, which is going on in municipalities as well as states, discussing any trans bills that are being passed on the state level, and also learning how you can take action, because these are important topics. They affect all of our lives. So looking at reproductive rights and how to protect, PFLAG National affirms just what our position is, that we have a right to safe and legal abortions, and it's the law of the land established in Roe v. Wade, which is currently being assessed by the Supreme Court. We support the right to privacy and self-determination, and we believe that reproductive health care includes fair, equal, and affordable access to abortion. We oppose anything that gets in the way of that. And thinking about what you can do relative to reproductive justice and the issues that are going on right now in our country. Get loud. You can, whether it's on social media or in person, wherever you're allowed, use your voice, because it matters. Make sure that if you see updates, share them with people who you know in your own social networks, and contact your elected officials. There's nothing like the power of the zip code. And it isn't just where you live, it's more importantly where you vote. And so the people who you are representing you are actually the ones who you bring to office or choose not to back home. The Women's Health Protection Act is very, very important. And so we hope that everyone will continue to get involved and stay involved. And really, as Emily mentioned before, you know, this is a key election year. Midterms matter, and getting involved and making sure that you vote in every election is extremely important. And whenever there are marches to protect Roe, invite all of your friends back home or wherever this occurs to show up and be counted. Another hot topic right now, though, is fighting censorship, and we're having to battle book bans. What's happening is then there has been a tremendous movement in municipalities across the country to try to silence voices, ban books in public libraries and in public schools, and deem that everything is inappropriate, whether it's an LGBTQ plus or people of color, either authors, topics, or books. And it's a coordinated, very highly funded partisan effort to censor divisive topics, which is what they consider everything relates to ethnicities or communities of color and LGBTQ plus people. And of course, that includes AAPI people across intersections, whether LGBTQ or not. These partisan actors are really doing tremendous harm by pushing hard, getting people on school boards who then oppose our inclusion, and it harms families. These same forces are trying to also do state level and local level curriculum bans. How you can do what you can do yourself is to get educated. You can start by doing research and staying informed on what's happening back in your communities back home, and surveying the landscape. Find out what your relatives and friends back home are experiencing, and ask them to stay in touch on your behalf to make sure they're watching when school board meetings occur and how they can be involved, whether you send them testimony to present on your behalf or whether you encourage them to do their own. We have a great spot on our website, and Emily has the slide deck, so you'll be able, if you get that, to be able to click that and access it. Or you can go to our website, pflag.org, and find the location right there. And one of the things that you can do is go into the Fighting Censorship and Organizing page of pflag.org and know what our talking points are. We lead with love. Youth lead the way, and don't put our kids back in the closet. And you can join our incredible Read with Love campaign. We have a partner called Red Wine and Blue. Red Wine and Blue is a network across the United States of suburban housewives who were got mobilized after the presidential election prior to this immediate past one, and decided that from suburbs they could make a difference by organizing and getting their neighbors to be active in elected politics in the local capacity. What you can do regarding this, you can find out when local meetings are, school board meetings or public library meetings. Invite people to go back home. If you can't be there, mobilize your friends. Like I said, you can tell your testimony, tell friends back home to gather theirs or do it on your behalf. And we do have an action page, and just tell people persistence is key. Also, regarding censorship, you can do research, find out what's happening, and find out what the process is to do this. Find your allies and educate them. This isn't just about AAPI or LGBTQ plus people, but also everyone who's affiliated and cares about our lives. Never stop speaking up and amplify student voices, because they really matter and are too often left out. You can always do an op-ed or letter to the editor, starting with a personal anecdote and making 2 or 3 supporting points. Throw in a couple of statistics, which you'll find on our Read with Love page and also on our Fighting Censorship, and conclude with what draws pieces together. Our manager of media relations, Laura McGinnis, is always happy to lend a hand and a mind to help you shape your stories. The really critical area, though, is anti-LGBTQ plus state initiatives, and that's happening at the state level. There's nearly 300 anti-LGBTQ plus bills, and there are more than 100 anti-trans ones. At last count, is actually close to 130 or so. There are also executive orders in places like Texas and Florida where harm continues, and keeping up with what's happening back home is really important. You can look up what's happening in your home states at equalityfederation.org, and you can look up what bills are in place, but also what laws are in place and where the gaps are. And there are just too many bills that are being passed, including a healthcare ban in Alabama. And there is litigation in place to fight these, but we all know that courts take time. Court action takes time, and victory is never certain. So depending on the outcome of the elections coming up this year, things could get worse. And I'll tell you, they could also get better. We have a lot more than 60 to 75% of people believe that there should be LGBTQ plus people having equality and equity. And that means there are more of us than there are people who oppose us. The types of anti-trans bills that are occurring are athlete bans, medical care bans, legal document change bans, and sad to say, but just like back in the day of North Carolina's HB2, bathroom and locker room bans are starting to perk up in some states, although they're staying more squelched, but they are popping up again. On the athlete bans, what happens is this is where they criminalize schools and programs that allow trans and non-binary kids. Some do kindergarten through through 3rd grade, some do K through college. And it tries to ban participation in sports that aligns someone with their gender identity. And myself, as a former NCAA tennis letterman at the University of Georgia, I have to say that not being able to participate in something that's fun and that also that builds character is really hard. But just being on the playground and playing with your friends is really what we're talking about, not professional athletes. Some legislation would even allow genital inspections for children as an enforcement mechanism. And the truth is that all kids deserve the same chance to be part of a team, to play with their friends, and just learn sportsmanship as part of overall learning. Another type of ban is medical care. This is where medical treatment, gender affirming treatment that is proven to be medically necessary, is criminalized in communities. And this means everything from puberty blockers to hormone replacement for adults, puberty blockers for youth. And it also means in some places, such as Texas and Alabama, where parents and providers are also criminalized. So physicians are not allowed to support gender affirming care, and parents who are really trying to take care of their children are criminalized. These are all being fought in courts, but we say courts take time. The elections are where things will matter the most. And another issue is legal document change. I will tell you that changing your documents is a process, but when people are trying to ban you from doing it, it becomes a burden that becomes sometimes risking your life when you have to show an identity document that doesn't match who you are. These bans prevent trans and non-binary people from changing their gender marker either on birth certificates or other legal documents. Now, we do know that the federal level, State Department does allow, it has since 2011 actually allowed transgender people to get their gender markers changed without requiring medical intervention. But now, of course, we have the inclusion of the X gender marker, which is permitted. And that'll be fully in place by the end of the year, but it's already there now. So it means that people can be protected, and we would recommend going to the federal level first if there's a burden at the state or local levels. Things that you can do to take action: look up our resources. We have a kids and families page, and we also are able to help you shape your stories. If you ever write me if you wish, I'll help you do it. And if we need to get stuck, Laura will help us out. But make sure that your neighbors back home are fighting on our behalf. And we also, of course, have to fight for federal anti-discrimination legislation. And right now, the most important one is the Equality Act. It is in the Senate. It passed the House already in this session, and it's in the Senate. We are right now where Senators Baldwin and Merkley are, Tammy Baldwin and Jeff Merkley are actually having discussions with their peers who are in the Republican Party to be able to encourage them to support full inclusion. And those conversations are going on, and we're supporting. The thing with the Equality Act is we need 60 votes. So we believe that there will require strong action later in June. We'll keep you posted. We'll keep you included on this, but we're really up for some excitement ahead. These conversations are occurring. And of course, relative to voting, we have PFLAG votes 2022 that'll be launched at the end of July in time for the big August primaries. But right now, we already have in place the goal to encourage people to register to vote, to mobilize others, and to make sure that you're aware of how to protect voting rights for your friends back home. Voting abroad, it includes special deadlines and such, which the Democrats abroad keep you posted on. So stay in touch with those. And I'm going to open it up for questions and stop sharing my screen. Emily can provide you with my contact information and my colleague, Patrick Cochran. We're always here to help. Reach out to us anytime for anything. And I thank you very, very much. And I'll stop sharing now.
Thank you so much. That was really wonderful and really informative. Yes, if anyone has any questions, they're welcome to put their hand up or type in the chat. But I do want to ask before we jump to that, looking at the Equality Act, are there any, if you can already name any specific senators or that we can already start, pressing specifically that we think we could get to provide support, and are there any names that you can already throw out there so we know what states we can start targeting?
Thank you. Yes. I mean, the truth is priority states are so important, and states, like states like West Virginia, states like Pennsylvania, Ohio, looking at the senators that are so important. Some, even in Texas, in Florida, we have senators we know who don't always side with us. And we believe that storytelling is the most important part of reaching people who don't agree with us. There are stories that even I've lived through that have shown that people who don't always side with LGBTQ plus or AAPI people or Latinos or African Americans can be told family stories and how their constituents are affected, which is the most important part of an elected official's obligation, is to serve the people who put them in office. So, looking at senators in states who may oppose us, of course, Utah, we have, Senator Romney, my former governor in Massachusetts, is someone who can be very reasonable and be able to be talked with to understand where people's lives are affected. And of course, in Alaska, Senator Murkowski is extremely important. In Maine, Senator Collins, tremendously important. Looking at people who can listen and telling our family stories are the most important things, not just of LGBTQI people and not just AAPI, but also our allies and our family members. People who are lives that we affect, them reaching their legislators are important. We believe very strongly, though, in the power of the zip code, where the constituent is the voice that matters. So calling senators and calling your networks to engage them, whether it's people through the communities of faith, or whether it's through education or labor or any area in which your work touches, get them mobilized back home and stay connected abroad as you all do throughout the year.
Great, thank you. I will turn to Martha and then after that, Jazz. Martha, go ahead.
Yes. Hi, Diego, and thanks so much for your presentation. I can't remember the last time somebody started out with like, here's the stuff you can do. And I think that that's actually fantastic. I was not going to be sitting up in the bleachers listening, but like it got me immediately engaged. So thank you for that. And I was just also noticing like, you and I met when you were still working for Barney Frank, and how much has changed since then. And therefore, what a movement there is of people who are really, changing their, wanting to change their legal documents, for example. What a challenge that is in terms of voting for us, in terms of making sure that people are not disenfranchised because their name doesn't match, and that they get to actually vote under their chosen name and their real name. So thank you so much for all of your activism around that. So my question is about the work that we can do with families and parents. In our Democrats Abroad LGBTQ plus caucus, we have from time to time have people who reacted really strongly in a very critical way around our work around trans issues, because they themselves had a young person, like a teenager or a child, who had declared a new gender identity, and the parents were really struggling with that. And so we can even lose members that way if we don't have a properly compassionate and so forth response to that. I just wondered if you have any suggestions or any materials that would help us, bring that understanding to people that they're going through their own journey in terms of, discovering who, well, of course, any parent is going to discover who their child is anyway through their life, but this very, clear moment where they're rediscovering who their child is. And if you have any tips there, thank you.
Thank you, Martha. It's always good to see you, and thank you for all the work that you do as well. PFLAG is the organization, the oldest and largest, it will be 50 next year, that combines LGBTQ plus people, the families and parents, and also allies. And so we have tremendous publications that exist. If you go to pflag.org, you can look up all of our publications that are downloadable for free. I would say ship them, but you wouldn't want to necessarily do that abroad because it would take a minute. But you can download them now for free and put them right in whatever way that you access publications. But this is everything from, how to be a guide to being a trans ally, or our trans loved ones, and then everything from a parent's or also a youth's coming out guide. There is a way for everyone to be able to be engaged at the level at which they're most comfortable. For many parents, it's a journey. They know they love their children. They just have to learn how that needs to show up in their kids' lives. And that's part of why PFLAG also has something called PFLAG Academy Online. It's a series for free. You can look at these. sessions that actually walk through different topics and areas of life. And one of those is how to tell your story in 2 minutes. And it becomes a wonderful tool that is taught by our Director of Learning and Inclusion, Jane Marie Nevada, and our Manager of Learning and Inclusion, Jamie Hinkle. And they teach you, because they're actually educators, are able to walk through how to tell a story that gets the most impact out of it. We have the power of all a kid needs is one affirming adult. It doesn't even have to be a parent. It's great if it is. One affirming adult is what engages them to wanting to stay alive and get to the next day with vigor and affirmation. Only takes one supportive adult. So knowing that and being able to use the tools that PFLAG provides is really important. You know, while our anniversary, that's 50th, is next year, this June, next month, June marks the 50th anniversary of our founder, Jean Manford, actually walking with her son at the Christopher Street Liberation March in New York. And she's a school teacher and made a homemade sign, which is our iconic image, which you'll see on our website and everywhere. Is actually the only image of an organization that actually was in an inauguration parade, which was in President Obama's second inauguration parade, that iconic image. But showing that connection between families and any supportive adult, but really valuable when it's a parent, is really key. So we believe that you can always access our publications for free. Take a look at them. They're written in very accessible language by design, so that it's anyone who wants to take a look at language that keeps changing. Martha, the world has dominantly changed relative to transgender people and the explosion of non-binary people. The more laws that we make that allow people to be open, that means that more people feel comfortable disclosing or coming out. So the numbers get bigger. It means that the range of protection has to be stronger and more inclusive as well. And it's a testament to past work that the numbers grow, because it means that the people are more comfortable. And even where they're not safe, we have to make them safer.
Thank you so much. It's so moving to talk about children and families and the difference we can make there, just being one person. Thank you. We'll check out those publications too.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Martha. Now I want to turn it over to Jazz, who is the chair of our Global Black Caucus.
Yes, hello together and everybody all around the world there. Thank you, Diego and PFLAG, for all the advocating that you're doing, especially for our Black trans community, which are really, really relying on a lot of help, a lot of support, but also sharing a lot of knowledge to make not only their lives better, but actually the lives of almost every American who encounters into LGBTIQ plus topics. And also I do want to say thank you very much towards the Asian American, the AAPI Caucus for hosting such a great and important event like this. And I think within DA, we need to do way much more events like this. So again, thank you both very, very much. What interests me is looking at all of the conservative voters that are out there. How do we address some of these groups, including Asian Americans, Black Indigenous people of color, that both are also or can be quite traditional and conservative in their own ranks? How can we address these people who do not accept LGBTIQ plus people and drift them from the wrong side of history to the right side of history? How can we not necessarily convince them, but educate them that what their belief system is wrong, and show them that working together with Democrats and working down ballot, doing that could actually be the real and sustainable future? Thank you very much.
No, that's a tremendous question. And I mean, the whole thing is, it's not really a partisan thing, it's a human thing. And so the way that that we engage, and we have done it with people who are tremendously conservative, but I believe that actually everyone everyone is just one person away from being connected to someone who's LGBTQI plus. And, you know, they never know when a family member is going to disclose. They never know when someone is going to fall in love with someone who's LGBTQ plus, LGBTQI plus. And we have to engage people by leading with love. PFLAG believes that if someone is extremely opposed or believe that their belief system takes them away from inclusion, we have to humanize. We have to let them know that every life, you know, most people actually support human existence. And despite the, you know, recent incidents, overall humanity is generally kind and would be inclusive if we can explain to them that we all have shared struggles and that our victories can be shared if we understand what struggles we actually place on others who are human. Meaning that someone may say, I don't like those people, meaning any or all of us, no matter who we are. But explaining that access, that lack of access that they're trying to engage and feel proud about, actually risks human life, risks access for someone to go to school safely, to go to work safely, to access, you know, a voting booth safely, or even to register to vote. Being challenged at registration is a reality. But the way that we engage is to make sure people understand that humanity is one human at a time. And each human is actually a person who needs to have access, and that the belief system is a systemic thing, but they're generally based on love. Most belief systems are based on love. And if we can show the humanity and telling our stories, both our personal ones, those of our family members and those who are close to us, and getting our allies to tell those stories too, how their lives are affected by the people who they know. That's the way that we do it, is one heart at a time.
Thank you for that. And I really love that line that humanity is one human at a time. I think that's really great. And also something that we all need to remember, especially during these times when there's a lot of emotions for a lot of different things that are going on. And I know this week has especially been very trying probably for everyone here. One thing I want to ask is, you know, looking at these, you know, turning towards the voter and voter suppression, things like that, you know, obviously, especially with gerrymandering, things are at play that are disproportionately affecting certain voters over others. For example, AAPI voters in Georgia, who were very crucial in the last election, and their efforts to, you know, restrict early voting or absentee voting, things like that. And, you know, what is PFLAG doing, you know, to kind of see if what role are you playing to trying to counter these things, or to also make sure that people are able to vote and to make sure that their voices are heard in the elections?
Thank you for asking that, Emily. You know, PFLAG Votes 2022 is really built on 4 pillars, and that is about voter registration, voter education, voter mobilization, and then voter protection. And those 4 pieces are really the key to what it is. You know, if we don't get people to register, they're not going to be able to vote. And if we don't open up the avenues for voting, we're not going to allow people who may be living either with disabilities. A disability can be the bus doesn't come to my neighborhood. You know, it is also the inability, you know, I'm 65, and I'll tell you, if I had to stand for 8 hours and not go to the bathroom and not have food, it would be a very serious medical incident at a voting place. That is not what, you know, it shouldn't be an endurance contest. It should be a celebration of citizenship. And so we really work hard to work with partners at every step of the level. And Emily, since you mentioned, you know, the particular part about fighting voter suppression, and we partner with organizations, and those are on our website. And when people are trying to engage in voting and they're blocked, there are organizations who dedicate resources human resources, but also brain power to be able to educate people on what their rights are, how to speak up and not be silent so that these things can be corrected. Now, there are things where, where we have provisional ballots in places where people vote and then it's decided later whether their vote counts. We have professional people paying attention to these matters so that people are not left behind. It's really important that people know what their rights are. And voting abroad is really a key thing. We've got expats everywhere. We have military families everywhere. We've got to be able to make sure that people know what the tools are. And I must credit you. I've got to say the Democrats Abroad incredible website is such a good tool and easy to access and find the different links that you need. You've done a tremendous job. No one can say they couldn't find what they need. So congratulations to you on that. We actually try to do the same thing for our PFLAGers with our partners throughout the country.
Well, thank you for that. We also appreciate hearing that our information is easy to find, because I know we're always working really hard to get our message out there and to reach as many people as we can. And there's just so many people that we're constantly finding too that don't know that they can vote overseas. I had someone I'll never forget ask me if they had to pay money to vote. So there's a lot of things that we're combating, and also the dual citizens that we're trying to find. So if there are ways that, that we can work with you or support your efforts, please also, we'd love to hear that. And then another question too, I would like to ask is, turning to, now the Supreme Court and what is happening there, and what we're all essentially now just kind of waiting for the official word to come down. What do you think is going to happen next? What do you see, happening with the LGBTQI community? Do you see same-sex marriage now also being kind of in jeopardy about the future there? I'd love to hear your opinion and thoughts on that.
Absolutely. Well, the whole issue is that it points out one thing that's beyond the topic, which is about the power of the courts. And that when we're voting down ballot, no matter who, we vote on issues, it's not always about people, it's about what people believe. And so we believe that looking at whenever judges are up for election, to pay attention to that and to participate, keep going, don't stop after you fill one thing, fill out one box, keep going down ballot. But relative to the Supreme Court and the critical moment that we're in right now, everyone should recognize that we are at risk, and that paying attention is not is mandatory, and carrying on by not paying attention is not an option. We have to know that reproductive justice is the same thing as any type of justice. It is equally important, and we all have to work to protect it in every way we can. The good news is today, Martha and I talking about, years back, we had fewer, every organization we had 10 or fewer years experience than they do now. And we've got some court battles under our belt that we have had to win hard, but we've done it through people who are brilliant. And I believe that we have some of the best minds on the planet paying attention to this right now. Everything if something that's so codified in law as Roe v. Wade is challenged, it means everyone needs to pay attention to absolutely every issue, no matter what community you are in. And I should say communities, because no one is one thing. But looking across communities in our intersectionalities and where we're protected and feel we are, this is a call to action for absolutely everyone to pay attention. And it's why one of the points in the slide deck was about, if actions are happening to stand up for reproductive justice, do so. Get people to do what it is, to be visible, so that everyone knows we're paying attention and we're in for this fight. We're not going to give up on our lives. Too many people have given up too much for us to have these rights. We're going to continue to fight.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think also looking at that is just, I've heard a lot of people say, well, we did what we were asked. We voted, you know, you technically have majorities, and we're going to people now and saying, no, you need to vote again. Like, you know, this is the most important election, and, you know, you got to do this again. And it's, you know, that argument that, you know, we're starting to hear, at least I've started to hear more and more, like, well, what do you need me to do? Like, I've done what I thought I needed to do. And I guess, you know, I don't, you know, I'm always asking people, you know, what do you say to that? And how do you kind of keep motivating people, also even within our own group, of motivating people to stay involved in this marathon? I mean, we all know that it's a marathon. We all know that this isn't going to be solved tomorrow, but how do we keep, you know, what is it that helps make you get up every day and continue to fight for this thing that seems, you might feel like you've been fighting for a very long time? What helps you keep going?
You know, what I really think about being a kid in first grade. When I was in first grade, I was so excited to be going to school because it was something that I didn't get to do when I was in kindergarten, and I didn't have pre-K. So I was ready to go to school. I knew that when I was going to go there, I was looking toward the future for my life. My parents always taught me that, you know, if you learn, then you're going to have a better opportunity in life. And even in first grade, you know, you may not know what a job is, except that your parents have them and you don't. But what you do know is that you get up every day and you do a particular duty. And it includes everything from showering and having breakfast and brushing your teeth and doing all these particular things, putting on the correct shoe on the correct foot, all those really tough things you have to remember in first grade that you may get more natural at as time goes on if you're lucky. So I get up every day because I still feel like in some ways I have that excitement of being a kid with the future ahead. And that is what voting is all about. It is about getting up every day and saying the future is ahead. What do I have to do? Now, when we're in the first grade, we have to get to school. So we either take a bus or we walk or someone holds our hand and takes us. I think voting is just like that. When we think about whether some people need to get to a particular place or way to vote, whatever the avenue is, we work hard to make sure we've created it, that it's easy to access and that it's safe for them, just like in first grade. So that for me is kind of when I simplify it to say, what I've always done is what I have the opportunity to do in this country and in everywhere that I serve as part of this country, even when I'm abroad. That's an honor as well as a right. So I think keeping people energetic about this as if they were still looking toward the future, because we are, that is what can help people stay motivated. And while the pieces of it get a little more complicated, what are the deadlines? You know, even in first grade, we still have to show up. We still get an attendance record. You know, you still get graded on all kinds of things, including conduct, which is why we lead with love. But looking at absolutely everything, I think it's the same as it ever was, except that we're better at it because we've been doing it a lot longer.
Thank you for that. I also, that gave me a great idea for a new t-shirt that we should make, which is I have perfect voting attendance, meaning that everyone has continuously voted in all the elections and haven't skipped any, because I think that's also very easy to happen, especially living abroad, to just skip them. But I will keep that in mind. Jazz has a quick question. Does PFLAG have resources that we can share with our constituents? Is there a specific page on your on the website that we can go to?
As you can actually go in as far as what people can do and be active is you can go to pflag.org/advocacy. And you can look up everything from how to take action on a variety of topics, some of which we discussed here. We have going back to people and their roles as constituents. It's really critical that they stay visible and do it with your stories. You know, there are a lot of things right now that are breaking our hearts, but also that make us furious. And I really think that we use that energy. I don't want everyone to waste all their energy or use all their energy on anxiety. I'd like them to focus it on activation instead. And so looking at the advocacy section, and also if you go to pflag.org and look at those publications, constituents need to also know how to deal with their neighbors. So it's not just about the issues, which we can help through the advocacy, but it's also about the neighbors, which we do through our publications and the different areas there. But PFLAG Votes 2022 is coming up in a couple of weeks. and in a few weeks, and you'll be able to see all the different tools. We still have the old ones there, but the new ones are coming right up. And then we have, pflag.org, fighting censorship. And when you look at that, you can see all the things to do to protect everything. And then we have, the trans area, which is inside of advocacy, but everything is structured under that advocacy umbrella so that however people want to take action, they're able to do that.
Great, thank you. I think I want to go ahead and wrap it up for today, but I wanted to ask if you have any final messages, points, or anything that you would like to share before we come to an end.
Absolutely. I just want to say, hold your hearts. Know that we all care for each other and with each other, and that if you ever feel alone, just look at a neighbor. And in Democrats Abroad, I know what it's like to be and live overseas. Sometimes it gets really lonely and it feels very stressful to say what's going on back home, because eventually I'm probably going to be there. Taking action to make, just the way that we prepare our homes, every day, we have to do that with each other as well. Prepare your neighbors as well as your neighborhoods.
Thank you. That's really beautiful. I really appreciate that. And I also want to thank everyone for participating in today's event. Diego, thank you so much for getting up and taking the time to share your work with us, and for your cat for getting up with us as well. And we want to thank PFLAG for their tremendous role in advocating for LGBTQI people, their families, friends, and allies. Thank you to the Global Black Caucus, the Global Hispanic Caucus, and the LGBTQ+ Caucus for supporting this event today. And a special thanks to Eileen for helping with the tech, and for Susan for getting in touch with Diego and making this event possible. For those of you who are overseas Americans and not yet members of Democrats Abroad, you can still join Democrats Abroad and also then become a member of one of our caucuses. All you need to do is go to our website at democratsabroad.org/join. This event is wrapping up our AAPI Heritage Month celebration, and is a great transition and kickoff to Pride Month, which begins June 1st. Please make sure to check out the LGBTQ+ Caucus event page to see what they have planned for Pride. We look forward to attending those events and getting the chance to celebrate with them as well. And of course, last but not least, if you have yet to do so, make sure you request your ballot for November. You just need to go to votefromabroad.org. Only takes a few minutes and it's super easy. And we highly recommend you get that crossed off your to-do list as soon as possible. So thank you again to everyone for attending, and we look forward to seeing you at a future event. Have a great Saturday.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.